Okay, thank you, Galen. We appreciate everybody who joined us today.
Blanchard. What?
Just want to start out by asking everybody to please, unless you're speaking, mute your microphones. Everybody, please mute your microphones unless you're speaking so we don't interrupt the presentation. And with that, I'll introduce Rick Smith, who is the Warning Coordination Meteorologist. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick. And he's got a lot of good with the National Weather Service. He's got some good stuff to tell us about. So, Rick, you have the con.
All right, good morning. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for having me. I hope I have some good stuff for you. We'll see how it goes here at the end, but I'm always glad to have an opportunity with these days in the pandemic to have an excuse to put a shirt on with a collar. So that's nice. I haven't been at the office in a long time, so it's nice to be here. So I'm going to try to share my screen here, and if somebody can let me know if you see it. Do you see
It's
the?
just like doing audio checks on the Monday briefings.
There we go. Do you see the title slide there?
Yes,
Yes, you're up.
All right. All right. I'm gonna push through here. I've got a kind of a roundup of topics. As a lot of times when I do these talks, there's just several things to talk about. I do want to allow some time at the end for questions because I'm not going to be able to cover everything everybody's interested in. So I'll try to leave enough time at the end for questions. I guess it's hard to handle questions during the session here. So if you've got questions as we go along, hang on to them, and we'll either stop from time to time and ask for questions, or just do them all at the end. So let me jump right into it. Got several things to talk about here this morning. First of all, just the weather going on today. We do have a severe weather risk in the area. Now I think this is the latest outlook from 7 o'clock this morning. Really, the threat today is focused out in the Texas Panhandle, far western Oklahoma. I don't know if that's cut off on the edge of the screen over there, but the metro area is in a marginal risk. Just communicating with the office, it looks like the trends are for things to be later and later and continuing to be weaker for the metro area. So I think any weather that we might have here would be after midnight and probably not be too big of a deal. The real impacts are going to be with supercells this afternoon that develop, and within the first several hours after they develop, there's lots of wind shear and ingredients present out there east of Amarillo over to the Texas-Oklahoma border for maybe even some stronger tornadoes today. So there was at least a couple of tornadoes out there north of Lubbock yesterday, and today the ingredients are even more favorable for that. So we'll be watching out there. Of course, our area of responsibility goes all the way out to that border, so we'll be watching that. I think we issued a few warnings yesterday. Nothing substantial, but that's the outlook for the metro area. Kind of way out west today, and not that much for us tonight, which I'll certainly take it. All right, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing, what we typically do with severe weather operations. Just kind of start off, Doug Spieger, who's our resident tornado historian and expert and keeper of all the trivia of tornadoes, recently went through a pretty huge project of doing county-based tornado track maps based on all the tracks that we have for all 56 of our counties. So now if you go to our tornado database page and look for Cleveland County, you can get this map, and I grabbed it off of there yesterday, but there's one for every county. Now this is every known tornado. This is certainly not every tornado that we've seen. And you can see where Galen lives up there plainly. But I think if we had this is my stock answer to everybody that says, why does Moore get all the tornadoes? Everybody gets tornadoes. I think if we had a complete picture, if we knew of every single tornado that happened, I think you would see fewer clusters on this map. There's no reason that's no scientific reason that's happening up there. But anyway, I just thought this might be interesting to look at. We are going to be improving the way that we document tornadoes in the future. Very few tornadoes travel in straight lines like some of these are. So we're going to be able to actually save and document those actual tornado tracks much easier into that official database. So anyway, this is out there if you want to take a closer look at it, see where your house is, where you stack up with everybody else there. Just some other trivia. The last time that there was an EF4 in the state of Oklahoma was May 19th, 2013, and that was in Cleveland County. And the last EF5 we had, not only in Oklahoma, but anywhere in the United States, was May 20th, 2013. I'm not going to talk much more about that. Don't want to jinx anything, but that's the last tornado, last EF5 tornado we had anywhere in the United States was the Newcastle, Moore, Oklahoma City tornado back on May 20th.
And just for record, that EF4 was not in Moore.
It was not in Moore. You missed out on that one somehow, but no, that was East Norman and over toward Bethel Acres and Shawnee in that area. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. All right. I don't want to look at the average number of watches and warnings. Last year was kind of a quieter year for watches and warnings. Let me see if I can move. Okay, good. I've got a window over there that's blocking part of my screen. Now I can see. Kind of the averages for Cleveland County in an average year based on 2010 to 2020, we have 5 tornado watches in Cleveland County, 11 severe thunderstorm watches, 5 tornado warnings, 42 severe thunderstorm warnings. Those smaller numbers off to the right-hand side there are what we had last year. So in some ways, last year was a quieter year. In some ways, we actually had more severe thunderstorm warnings last year than average and more severe thunderstorm watches, but fewer tornado watches and warnings, which is okay. I don't have a slide for this, but last year in 2020 for the state, we had 39 tornadoes for the whole state of Oklahoma. The average is 57. Now that 39 follows 2019, where we had a record-setting 149 tornadoes. What does any of this mean for what the upcoming tornado season is going to be like? Absolutely nothing. It's impossible to say. Everybody wants to forecast and wants to make a forecast of what the season's going to be like. It's very rare for us to have 2 below normal seasons in a row. I mean, we did do that back in 2006 and 2007, where we had 2 seasons in a row or 2 years in a row where the tornado total was below normal. But, my gut feeling is we'll have more than we did last year. But just remember, like we tell everybody, it only takes 1. It doesn't matter if it's a below normal season, if your town, if your house, if your family is affected, then that'll be a bad thing. So we are looking at a La Nina pattern continuing, and you may have seen news stories. There's been several national news stories about how this La Nina pattern may affect the upcoming severe weather season. And there's all kinds of theories, lots of comparisons to 2011. If you remember, 2011 was one of the craziest years I can remember just overall in our area and in Oklahoma, with record-setting cold, record-setting snow. And then we had the May 24th tornado outbreak. We had an EF4 tornado in November that year. It was just a crazy year. No 2 years are alike. It's not like, we can't say that this year is going to be exactly like 2011. It won't be. They never are. But we're just watching the patterns. And remember that these tornadoes are caused by individual thunderstorms. And if you remember back on, this is May 10th of 2010, I believe. At the beginning of that day, I think we had 3 tornadoes in the whole state. By the end of the day, we'd had nearly 60 or something like that. So one thunderstorm can produce more tornadoes than we can really deal with sometimes. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to give you a forecast, but I think it will be more than last year. And I think we do need to be ready, because there will be tornadoes this year somewhere nearby, and we need to be prepared for those. Just a reminder, this is the area that my office covers. We cover the 48 counties in central and western Oklahoma and 8 counties in western North Texas. Every forecast, warning, every piece of weather information for any of those counties comes from our office. For the first time in many years, we are staffed up to our full staffing profiles. So the core group, the people that do the real work in the office are these 16 people. These are the 5 senior meteorologists and the 11 meteorologists who work those rotating shifts and are there doing the forecast. When I send you an email or I do a weather briefing, I'm telling you what they told me to say, basically, because they are the experts. So, and they are the people that are there right now. So today it's Kevin and Bruce that are there. And unfortunately, they're dealing with internet problems, NWS chat problems, radar problems, things like that. Of course, things that you deal with when we're having the potential for severe weather, but that's the core of the group. That's the core of our operations and the people that do the most important work. Everybody else that works in the office is kind of support staff to them. So the green box is kind of the management team of the office. David Andrew, the meteorologist in charge. Todd Lindley is the science and operations officer, and I'm the warning coordination meteorologist. Then we have an electronics staff, 3 technicians, an analyst, and an information technology officer. And then we have a hydrologist, observations program leader, and administrative support assistant. So anyway, just want to kind of give you a feel for what the staffing is in our office. We're going to talk more about staffing here in a little bit when it comes to pandemic staffing and how we're handling all of that. This is back in the good old days where we could have everybody in the office, and this was a bigger severe weather day. This is what it would look like on one of the bigger severe weather days where every chair in the room is full. Everybody at every one of those workstations has their own assignment and their own responsibilities of what they're working on, whether it's communications, whether it's hydrology, watching the flash flooding, whether it's social media, NWS chat, radar, or issuing warnings. So this particular day, we had all of that going on. I think this was maybe 2019. Well, it had to be 2019 sometime, but that's kind of a fully staffed office during a big severe weather day. Of course, we're looking at every available piece of weather information that comes in. We have our AWEPS computer system, which allows us to pull in everything from radar data to satellite data, computer model data, mesonet observations, airport observations, weather balloon soundings, pretty much anything you can imagine. And the forecasters use those same workstations to issue the forecast, the routine 7-day forecast, and to also issue anything from ice storm warnings to tornado warnings. On a typical day, we have a staff of 2 to 3 people working. Right now, we have 2 people in the office working, soon to have 3, and then we'll have more coming in later today. And of course, when it comes to severe weather, we're really focused a lot on radar data, and we use a tool called WarnGen to produce the warnings for us, where we actually draw the area that's being affected by the storm now and where we expect areas we expect to be affected, downstream for the next 45 minutes or so, and then we draw that warning up and it gets sent out. So again, during a typical severe weather operation, we may have 2, sometimes 3. I think we've had 4 people issuing severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings at one time, in addition to someone issuing flash flood warnings. So on a big day, it can get very busy, and every chair, like I said, it does require every chair in the room being full. We usually have what we call an information coordinator position also. This is the person who may be doing a variety of tasks. Sometimes this person is doing social media. They are also doing NWS chat. Sometimes we're also monitoring the 4 Oklahoma City TV stations. We try to monitor those during just about any weather event for a variety of reasons. The main reason is to glean the information that they're collecting for our uses. So if they've got helicopter pictures of a rotating wall cloud, or they've got chasers who are, taking pictures of hail and sending them to us, that's helpful. So we rely on that ground truth. So this can be one of the more multitask centric positions in the office, and where there's a lot going on. But this is all in support of the warning operations, getting reports off of social media or off the television, sharing those with the meteorologists who are issuing the warnings. We also work with 10 different TV stations. We serve 3 different television markets, cover parts of our area. The Oklahoma City market, obviously, with the 5 TV stations there. We have a station in Lawton and 2 in Wichita Falls, and 2 stations down in the Sherman, Dennis, and Ada area. We work with all those meteorologists around through NWS chat and through other ways. So those are the stations that we work with that cover parts of our 56 counties. And we do collaborate with them quite a bit. Often there's questions about, well, how do you work with the media, and why does the media do this or that, or do they do their own forecast, or questions like that. And we work very closely with them. They have a piece of data that we have pretty much available to them, and they do produce their own forecast, but we do collaborate with them and try to coordinate with them. We have, for the past several years now, done media workshops. We'll do 2 workshops a year. They have been in person in the past, but the last 2 have been virtual for reasons that are obvious. This is where we try to get as many of the stations together to come to our building and just talk about the weather, to talk about the common challenges, the common goals that we have, and to try to just have discussion going. I think the best way for us to have improved relations with the media, and they're good, but they could be better, is to have these interactions. So the top left image is one of our last in-person workshops there, with Randy doing some radar studies. And we get into some detailed meteorology with these. These are meteorologists, and we try to treat them as we should, as peers and as equals. So we share a lot of technical information. Bottom left-hand image there is Alex, one of our meteorologists, who's sitting down with Michael Armstrong on our weather event simulator, actually giving the meteorologists a chance to see what it feels like to actually issue a warning. And then the bottom right-hand image is from our last week's media workshop, where we had, I think, 8 of our 10 stations represented. Vivek was doing some pre-tornadic or a radar talk on pre-tornadic signatures. So again, that's all designed to just keep us all together, working together as much as possible. I also want to kind of give you behind the scenes of how we operate. We actually work with playbooks more and more. In the past, a lot of times, if I thought it was time for a webinar, I would just say, let's do a webinar. But we found, just like a lot of your jobs and a lot of your positions, you do need some redundancy and you do need some plans in case I'm not there for whatever reason. So we developed these playbooks, and this decision support operations playbook, just kind of give you a glimpse inside of what we look at. This is our severe weather playbook. And I think this may not be the most current version, but this just gives the forecasters, whether I'm there or not, an idea of what we should be doing, how many times we should be posting on social media, when we should think about doing a partner webinar like we would do a special webinar. So if there's a day 3 severe weather risk, if there's an enhanced or high risk on day 3, then we're supposed to, the guidelines are to conduct a webinar. And I won't bore you with all the details, but there is a plan to what we do. And this is the day 1 severe weather risk playbook, where it talks about when to publish the first social media post, and when to do a YouTube video, and if we're going to do the webinar, when to send the email out, when to schedule that webinar, and things like that. Again, this is all about consistency. And again, I just want you to see that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you don't see, a lot of planning that goes on. And sometimes hopefully it seems like it's working very smoothly, but there's a lot of this kind of thing that goes on behind the scenes. And really the main reason we're there is to provide information to protect life and property. And that usually this time of year comes in the form of severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings. Making that warning decision is difficult and it's challenging. And it's not as easy as looking for a number or a triangle on a radar display. There's a lot of analysis that goes on, multiple radars, multiple elevation angles, and lots of information that we're taking in to make those warning decisions. Most warning decisions are based, or there's a foundation of that decision that's based on radar. And again, we're looking at not just the base level reflectivity like you see the TV station showing, but we're looking at all different elevations of the storm, velocities, all different kinds of fields, looking for tornado debris signatures and things like that. We're also comparing that to what's going on in the environment. You can have the nastiest looking storm with a massive hook echo on it, but if the environment that storm is moving into is not favorable for that storm to continue or to live on, then it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, no matter how bad that one snapshot of the storm looks. So we're looking at a lot of information. As I said before, we are looking at media reports. We are very interested in the information that they're sharing. So we're taking advantage of that, monitoring their video, their feeds, and things like that. We're also kind of keeping an eye on what kind of messaging they're doing. If we see there's a lot of confusion about something, or what's been more common lately is there are certain things that you can see on radar that look very, very much like a strong rotational signature, these side lobe features that we talk about. And sometimes we will notice media keying in on a feature like that when we know that that's not a rotational feature, that is just an artifact of the radar data. And we can gently and kindly put something in NWS chat explaining that, and hopefully helping to nudge them away from the excitement about that being a potential tornado and more toward, explaining to them. So our job is to share information, to be the behind the scenes support staff for them. So that's another reason we're monitoring them. We are getting storm spotter reports, whether it's amateur radio, whether it's volunteer fire, whether it's a citizen who's taken a storm spotter class. Certainly the spotter networks and more and other places in the area are some of the best there are. And those reports are very, very valuable to us. We're also looking at storm chaser reports. Now, not all storm chaser reports are created equal. We do, take them with a grain of salt, but there are a lot of storm chasers that if I see that are out there on a severe weather day, I'm glad they're out there, because a lot of times they're in places where nobody else is. You know, we may not have a spotter network in Ford County, Texas, where the cattle, we haven't taught them how to be storm spotters yet, but there's going to be chasers there if there's a tornado, most likely. So they give us a lot of good information as well. And we do glean a lot of reports and information from social media. Again, we take this with a huge grain of salt. We've been, the people have tried to trick us and fool us before with fake pictures or putting a water balloon in the freezer and filling it with water and trying to pass that off as a cantaloupe-sized hailstone. A lot of times we'll see pictures come in and we recognize that those aren't pictures from this storm, that's from 2011 or something like that. So we don't just take this blindly, but we do get, I don't know, in some cases we get more reports on social media than we get from spotters, depending on what part of the area that the storm is in. And this can be from the media. Media will share us, like Emily Sutton in this case, got a hail report and tagged us in the tweet so we could see it. Same thing on Facebook. So that warning decision is based on all of that. It's based on the ground truth, but we're also looking at the history of the storm. The forecaster's intuition and experience comes into play. We have people in our office that have been doing this for decades and that are considered national experts on radar meteorology. So if it's a day where they're saying, I don't feel so good about this, or this storm has me concerned, that makes a difference in making a warning decision. Knowing the conceptual models, the diagrams that we show you in storm spotter training about where the hook is and where the mesocyclone should be, we certainly have that in our head. We're worried about storm impacts, obviously. We're also thinking about warning impacts. We don't want to issue warnings unnecessarily, and in many cases, the warning can cause more harm than the storm itself. So all of that is in our heads too. But that ground truth really comes into play. We're really thinking about those reports, and radar, no matter what radar you're looking at, what app you have, what TV station you're watching, radar cannot tell us where a tornado is definitively, or even if there's a tornado there, it can't tell us if it's hailing or how big the hail is or how strong the winds are. We need people to do that. So those reports are super, super critical, but it does make a difference who's reporting. It does make the report does have to make sense in the grand context of everything else. If we get a cantaloupe-sized hail report in Norman and we've gotten all the other hail reports around it or quarters or nickels, then that stands out, so that there may be something wrong with that report. Are the reports believable? Are they consistent? We do a lot of crowdsourcing where we're looking at not just an isolated report, but hopefully if there's more around it, we can use that to kind of see if that makes sense and compare it to what the environment says and what the radar says. We have had situations where people have tried to spoof us before, where we had a kid several years ago who was in his, in his parents' house in Nashville, Tennessee, who was sending in fake reports through our online reporting system that we used to have. It happens occasionally, but not very often. So we're very diligent in trying to catch all of that. So any warning decision is based not on one sole thing, but it's usually almost always based on a preponderance of the evidence. So it's everything combined. It's not just the radar signature. It's not just that one report, but most often it's everything put together. And as I said before, radar warnings do have consequences. When we issue a tornado warning, there's outdoor warning sirens that are going off. People's cell phones are being alerted. TV stations, if they're not already wall-to-wall, are immediately going to wall-to-wall with a tornado warning. People respond to the warning. Schools are taking shelter. Hopefully people aren't doing what you see there at the bottom of the screen from May 31st, 2013, but people are doing things with warnings, and that's a big responsibility for us. We know that Galen has a lot riding on the warnings that we issue or don't issue. So we take that with that's a very big responsibility that we take very, very seriously. But we don't want to issue tornado warnings if we don't have to, but we will issue tornado warnings if we believe that there's a risk there and that they're necessary. Our general warning philosophy, just to kind of give you a sense of what's in the back of our head when we're issuing warnings. In our computer system, in that WarnGen computer system, the default time, the default duration of a warning for both severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings is 45 minutes. We can change that. We can make it 30. We can make it 60. Usually don't go longer than an hour, but that's the default. So that's the normal amount of time that you'll get a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning for. We do try to make the warnings as small as possible to cover the storm or storms that we're dealing with. This gets a little bit tricky with tornado warnings, because if we literally draw the polygon small enough to where we think the tornado actually is, that's not going to cover the rest of the storm where there may be baseball size hail and 80-mile-an-hour winds or something. So that's a dilemma that we have sometimes. Should we issue 2 warnings? Should we make one big warning and cover the whole storm? But we do try to make those warnings as small as we possibly can, because more and more people are getting warnings based on this polygon that we issue and not just based on the full counties. Now, weather radio still does the full counties and other systems still do too, but these warning polygons are more and more being used. City of Norman's using them for sirens, for example. We do try to account for city and county boundaries on our computer system. We have all kinds of map backgrounds, and we have the city and county boundaries. We know the storm's going to do what it wants to do, and we're going to draw the polygon where we think the storm is going. But if we can keep it out of the city limits of Moore or Norman, if it's 45 minutes down the road, if a little tiny sliver of Norman's going to be included, and that's going to cause sirens to be sounded, we'll try to adjust for that. Now, I'm not going to promise we'll always do it, but we do try to do that. We even have the city of Oklahoma City's 9 warning siren sectors in there, because if a polygon touches a sector, that's how they decide how to set the sirens off. So don't think that we're looking at that a lot and making big decisions based on that, but we do have that availability, and we are at least able to see that kind of thing. Also keep in mind that you're going to get more than one warning in effect for the same area at the same time from time to time. Warning polygons are going to overlap. And one of the things that stresses me out as someone watching us issuing warnings sometimes is sometimes we may wait a little bit too long. We wait until the warning gets to the very edge of the polygon before we issue the next one. And we encourage the forecasters to not do that. We want them to make sure that everybody downstream has plenty of lead time. So especially for tornado warnings, you may see some overlapping. We're not going to wait till that tornado signature gets to the very edge at 44 after the hour and then issue the next warning. Hopefully, we're not supposed to be doing that. So that's the because of that, you will see some overlap from time to time. Now, we are operating differently now during the pandemic. Kind of give you behind the scenes. This is how we're going to be operating all severe weather season this year. We have no plans to reintegrate, and we're still teleworking and things like that. So this is how we're going to be operating. This is how we did it last spring and how we'll do it this spring. Since March 15th of last year, we've certainly had some limitations. We haven't been able to do any in-person meetings or do any travel except for damage surveys or maintenance on equipment. Obviously, can't have any visitors in the office, no tour, no National Weather Festival, anything like that. And in our office since March 15th of last year, we've implemented what's called Sunday staffing. So every day of the year, there are 7 operational shifts. There are 7 operational shifts where meteorologists are working. So there's 2 people that come in at 7 in the morning. There's a person that comes in at 10 in the morning. 2 more people come in at 3 in the afternoon, and then someone comes in at 10 p.m. Someone comes in at 11 p.m. So we have lots of overlap there, but that's the only people that are working in the office routinely. And that has been that way for a year now. Now, our electronics technicians have to go in from time to time. I've been there probably 5 or 6 times since last March 15th for various reasons, usually to work severe weather, but that's our staffing. So those 7 operational shifts a day are all that's there. Everybody else, the non-operational, all those support staff that I showed you, and any meteorologist who's on a training shift or something, they're at home working. So that is what we've been doing. We actually physically moved some things in the office to help us distance more. Do I have a slide for that? Yeah, this is an overhead view of our operations area, and you can see there's 10 positions there that we would typically staff or could staff up to that many for a severe weather event. What we've done is we've taken 2 of the workstations out of there. So the one in the top right corner and the one in the bottom left-hand corner, we actually moved those workstations. One went into someone's office and one went into another room kind of away from operations. This allows us to separate not only within the operations area to be further apart, but also if we have a big day, we're going to need a lot more people in the office than we would have for an event like today, for example. So that would also give us the opportunity for people to have a workstation to work at separated from each other. So we're very much still hardcore in this mode of social distancing, and we have to wear a mask at all times when we're in the office. and things like that. So we're the Department of Commerce, NOAA, Weather Service taking a very conservative approach. And the 3 yellow circles, if you can kind of see those there that pop up toward the middle of the image, those are positions that we would typically have working in the office that may be doing a lot of that work that those people will be doing may be done at home. And I'll talk more about that in a second. When the pandemic started, I'll be completely honest, we didn't really have a playbook for that. We didn't really have something where it's like, okay, in a pandemic, this is what we do, and this is how we handle teleworking, and this is how we handle severe weather, things like that. We had to improvise and do a lot of on the fly, innovation, making this up as we go along, but it worked out fairly well. We quickly determined that there are certain tasks that you can only do in the office. So we have to have people in the office to do warnings, to do the routine daily forecast. You can't launch a weather balloon from your house, not easily. So we do that from the office. Graphics have to be done from the office. And NWS chat can be done from home, and we sometimes do it from home, or usually it's a hybrid of people at home and at the office. But really, the best information on NWS chat is going to be when we have somebody in the office, because the person in the office is sitting close to the warning forecasters and hearing the information about what they're about to do or what they're thinking about a storm. And a lot of that gets transcribed into chat. So there's things that we have to do in the office. And in the baseline guidance for the staff is we try to have no more than 5 people in the office for a severe weather event. Now we can have more, and certainly if we have a big day, last year was relatively quiet. We didn't really have to break that rule so much, but if we have to break it, we will. We're not gonna put our operations at jeopardy or the quality of information in jeopardy. We will take all necessary precautions and get as many people in there as we can. In the meantime, we're going to have people that are supporting from home, doing telework. And there's certain things that were obvious that people can do from home. We can do social media from home. I can tweet and do Facebook posts from my house here. I can monitor the local Oklahoma City TV stations from here. I can actually collect storm reports and actually send those out. The one thing that we can actually transmit out to the world from the Weather Service from our house is the local storm reports. So that gets done a lot from home. And 2 analysis positions that are really kind of integral to our severe weather operations are a meso-analysis position and a radar analysis position. During severe weather, we have somebody in the office that they are the warning forecasters. And usually they are responsible for a portion of our county warning area. So for example, Vivek is a warning forecaster. He may be covering all the storms south of I-40 and west of I-35, whereas Phil is covering the rest of the storms. It gets divided up. Those warning forecasters are zoomed in on their area looking at things, but that radar analyst can do this from home in a lot of cases and can be looking at the bigger picture. They're also a safety net or another set of eyes that can look at things, and we can provide feedback. They can provide feedback to the warning forecasters who are in the office and say, hey, I noticed the circulation on this storm has weakened, or it's broadening, or it's tightening, or did you notice that this storm is getting close to that boundary we were worried about? Situational awareness types of things, and just another set of eyes. And we can also compare notes. We're thinking about a tornado warning for that storm. What do you think about it? And the radar analyst can kind of help with that. The meso-analyst is someone who can work from home, who's looking at the environmental data. So they're looking at what's the instability like? Where's the boundary? Where's the dry line? Are we seeing the winds backing or veering at the surface? Are the dew points going higher or lower? Is the moisture getting more deeper? Things like that definitely influence warning decisions. So we're doing a lot of that from home. So a lot of times there's a collaborative effort going on. These are the 2 main tools that we use to coordinate. Of course, we text and phone call, but we use Google Chat and Google Meet extensively to coordinate. Google Chat is just an internal chat room that we can use, and we coordinate. We use this every single day, and it can be anything from, on a routine day. Last week, there was lots of, hey, there's a vaccine clinic open here, so our people can get vaccinated. But on a severe weather day, it's like, or leading up to a severe weather day, it's like, here's my staffing plan, or here's what we're thinking. Here's who's going to come in early. Here's who's going to stay late. Coordinating on weather, things like that. Now, Google Chat is used all the time extensively for that. We also use Google Meet. We have a Google Meet every single morning at 8:15 with the entire staff, just kind of a catch up with everybody. How's it going? What equipment's not working? Well, it's not who's traveling because nobody's really traveling now, but who's available, who's sick, who's working, that type of thing, any equipment issues. So we have that every day. But on a severe weather day, for example, I don't think we're going to do it today, but yesterday for the severe weather, we had a Google Meet right after our 8:15 meeting where all the meteorologists stuck on, and we kind of compare notes about what are you seeing in the model data, what are the trends, what is our messaging, what's our messaging going to be today, what's the language that we're going to use, is this a webinar day, do we need to schedule a webinar, if we're going to send an email out to our EM and public safety list, what does that email need to say? So so we want to have a unified message. That Google Meet allows us to do that. And in some severe weather events last year, we actually kept a Google Meet room open so that the people who are teleworking can feel more connected to what's going on in the office. Like there was a couple of days actually where, before we issue a tornado watch, for example, we get on a conference call with the Storm Prediction Center. Well, we got the people in the office to actually broadcast that call over the Google Meet so everybody working at home can feel more part of the team, because you can feel kind of isolated sitting in your house. But this kind of thing, the chat and the meet really, really helps to make me feel like I'm more part of the operation, because I'm almost always here at home doing that. This is a shot of one of my setups last year during severe weather before I moved, but I have TweetDeck up there for monitoring Twitter. I have the Google chat room. I have NWS chat and radar scope. I have a couple of iPads monitoring the TV stations. And there's different setups that people have. This is actually one of the internal things that we're using yesterday to plan for severe weather. So this was the staffing summary and staffing matrix as we planned who's going to do what and who's doing it from home versus who's coming into the office. So what time are people coming in? How late can they stay? Things like that. So we use this routinely. And again, this is another thing that Google allows us to share. None of this is groundbreaking. People are doing this stuff all over the world in the pandemic and on a daily basis. So I'm not saying we invented anything. I'm just saying, I just want to show you that we were actually utilizing these tools to really, really help us. Here's another example of how they're sharing information from the office to help us be plugged in. Ryan, one of the forecasters yesterday, we have an internal chat room between us and other weather service offices and the SPC. Well, he gave us a heads up yesterday that SPC was in the collaboration chat, and they're going to put us in a day 1 enhanced on the next update, and they're going to do a day 2 enhanced for tornadoes and hail for tomorrow. So, and then Ryan actually took a picture of an internal, we get a preview of the outlook sometimes if SPC puts them up there. So he sent us that. That was right before the routine day 1 outlook update came out. So again, just a way to keep us in the loop. The mesoanalyst who's at home, this is Randy Bowers last year during one event. He was looking at the data from his house and he came up with this mesoscale update. What are the storms going to do? What's the tendencies? What does the Warning forecast model show is going to happen? So he would drop this in our internal chat room and he said, hey, is this okay if I put this in chat? Everybody said, yep, go ahead. And seconds later, he copied and pasted and it was in an NWS chat. So a lot of times if you're on chat, the things that you see in there, especially mesoscale updates, radar and analysis updates are from somebody at their house. So a lot of times you don't know that, and that's good because it means that's how it's supposed to look. And just another example, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is some of the collaboration coordination. Doug was in the office on this day. He was the coordinator and he's telling everybody at home they're going to let the tornado warning expire. And then Vivek and David were the radar analysts at home. So they were giving information to the warning forecasters. And Matthew was a mesoanalyst giving information on what some of the short-term models were showing. All right, I'm going to keep talking here. We'll take questions at the end. There's some changes coming up this spring to our severe thunderstorm warnings and special weather statements I want to make sure everybody's aware of. Beginning on April 28th, we're going to be putting damage threat category tags at the bottom of severe thunderstorm warnings. You may be familiar with those and the severe thunderstorm warnings now. Let's see, do I have an example? Yeah, that we have the hail and the wind tag down at the very bottom of the warning that you can see there. Beginning on April 28th, we're going to add some more details. So we're going to have a considerable and a destructive tag. So if we forecast winds of 70 miles an hour and or golf ball size hail, that will attach a considerable tag. And if we go 80 miles an hour or higher and baseball size or higher, that'll attach a destructive tag to the warning. Now, what's that going to do? Well, that's going to, well, I'll show you in a second. Sorry, I got my slides out of order here. The current tags that go at the bottom of a severe thunderstorm warning, you can do a tornado possible tag, you can do a hail or a wind. The new structure, the new options to us are going to be those that you see there. We'll still have the tornado possible tag, but you'll have that damage threat tag if we do a considerable or destructive. And there's a little bit more detail on the hail and the wind, whether it's radar indicated or observed, and then just the hail size or the wind speed that we are expecting. Really, the most exciting part of this to me is if we do a destructive tag in a severe thunderstorm warning, that's going to activate the wireless emergency alert system. The alert system that's on your cell phone, that's a collaborative effort between Weather Service and FEMA and all the cell phone providers out there. So if we issue a warning that has baseball size hail and or 80-mile-an-hour winds, that will activate the wireless emergency alert system, either in the original warning or if we update the warning in a severe weather statement. You'll only get one per warning or per severe weather statement, but that will activate for that. Now, we're changing our warnings on April 28th, but it may take a little bit of time for FEMA and everybody else to make those changes. So the WEA changes, don't expect to start getting WEA alerts on April 28th. The language that they used in the emails, it will take effect sometime after April 28th, which that could be anything, but I think it'll be pretty soon after that, hopefully. And I wanted to see what we've done. If we had been doing this in the past 4 or 5 years, what would it look like? Well, on average, if we went back retroactively 2016 to 2020, we would have done this 56 times a year on average for all of our counties. So that might come out to, I think I looked at Cleveland County, it was like twice we may have done this on average per year. So I don't think it's going to be a lot of new alerts on people's phones, but it will be some. And it's going to be an education effort because people like Galen and the TV stations and some others of you are going to get questions. Why in the world is my cell phone going off for a severe thunderstorm warning? So we want you guys to be aware that this is coming and that you know what it's going to mean. So when that comes into effect, this is for severe weather related products. This is what will trigger the wireless emergency alert system. If we issue a tornado warning of any kind, that will trigger it. If we issue a tornado emergency with that tornado warning with the catastrophic tag, either as the initial warning or we upgrade another warning, that will set off the wireless emergency alerts. We just talked about severe thunderstorm warnings, and the flash flood warnings that have those higher 2 levels of tags will also set it off. Now, it can also be for other things too, but in our area, that's the vast majority. So people will be getting more wireless emergency alerts as we go through this spring. Severe special weather statements are also going to change. You may be used to calling these significant weather advisories. We're not going to call them that anymore. This is a headquarters decision, not ours, but we're just going to be changing the special weather statements to look more like convective warnings. So it's going to have bullets, and it's even going to have tags down at the bottom. So even a special weather statement that's issued for a sub-severe storm is going to have the hail size and wind speed. We can even talk about land spouts. If we get one of these land spouts, which is typically a stationary tornado that can develop usually out in the field on a very warm, hot day that doesn't really pose much of a threat to life and property, we can actually cover those in these special weather statements. Let's see, what else do I have? Okay, that's all the slides I have. Good. I was hoping to have some time here at the end. So I blasted through a whole bunch of stuff there. So if anybody has any questions or want to talk any more in detail about any of that stuff or anything else that I didn't cover, if you got a question about something else, here's your chance. I'm glad to answer it if I can. If not, I'll make something up.
Rick, do you think that with the new tags coming out on the severe warnings, that you're going to see people start to ignore the severe warnings that don't have the higher threat tags on them?
That's a good question. And yeah, that's something we think about. I mean, that when we started doing, or when the Weather Service kind of institutionalized the tornado emergency, then that was one of the fears in the Weather Service and in the warning community in general is like, well, are people going to just, I'll wait for a tornado emergency to take cover, or I'll wait for, a destructive tag before I do anything. It's quite possible. I mean, we average, nearly 50 severe thunderstorm warnings a year in the metro area. I know people ignore a lot of them anyway. So I don't know. That's certainly a danger, and I don't know how we combat that, but I hope people see the value. I guess I'm kind of looking at the other side of it is it's going to be nice to be able to tap people on the shoulder about these really bad storms. So hopefully, even if they're ignoring the other ones, they'll take some action for the bigger ones. But I don't know. You've got a great point, and I have that feeling too. And
I was going to make the same comment about flipping it and going, well, maybe the people that are ignoring all of the severe warnings now, tell me when it's a tornado. That if they see the destructive tag, that maybe they'll go, oh, this isn't 60 and dimes.
And that's the kind of message I try to convey when I'm doing an interview or doing a talk or something, is like, if you've been ignoring these before, know that there's a new tool to help you know when the really bad storm is coming. So yeah, great point. Any other comments, questions?
Rick, I would just mention, I experienced one of those phone alerts the other day. I was driving up to Wichita, and somewhere south of Wichita, all of a sudden my phone gave that awful screech, and apparently they were testing in the whole state of Kansas. They did a statewide severe weather test, and but it was a beautiful day, and but man, it sure rocks you when that phone goes off. So
that was, I think there were some lessons learned from that. The system didn't work. The wireless emergency alert system did not treat that as a test, and it went out as a real thing. The language in it like a real thing.
Yeah, it talked about a tornado's coming, take cover immediately. Yeah, there was nothing about warning to it, but it was a gorgeous sunny day. So
yeah, that's one reason I'm not really a fan of doing test or practice tornado warnings. But anyway, yeah, that happens. But yeah, it's a good tool, and really it's good for travelers. I think they're one of the groups that get the most benefit, because if you're driving from here to Kansas City and you're on the turnpike and you don't know what county you're in or what exit did I just pass, you don't really have to know. I mean, it's going to approximate your location and give you the warning if you're near one of those cell towers. So yeah.
Right.
Rick, if I can ask you a question about how does the National Weather Service interplay with the ham community?
Yeah, you would think, speaking to an amateur radio group, I would have touched on that. I'm sorry. I was working on slides this morning, and some remained hidden when they should have. Yeah, we work with the amateur radio community. Now, things have changed in recent years. Amateur radio used to be a core integral part of our operations. That was someone who got called in just like you're a warning forecaster. And a lot of times it was Dennis McCarthy, who used to be here, Jim Papura, who was my predecessor. When I first got here, I did a lot of it, Forrest Mitchell, others in the office. We had about half.
You couldn't get Dennis off the radio.
Do what? Oh yeah.
You couldn't get Dennis off the radio.
I know, that's what I heard. And he was good at it with his exciting articulation of things. But no, Dennis is a great guy.
Tapes of that still exist.
Oh yeah, it does. I'll have to show the Shut Up Dennis video sometime again in a spot or two.
No.
But yeah, so it is a part of our operations. It has transitioned though. We don't really have as much someone sitting in the operations area of our office doing the amateur radio live from the office like we used to. Number one, we don't really have as much space to do it as we used to in the old office. It was kind of a workstation off to the side, and it lent itself to that more. In the other office, we were able to do that more. And second, we just got so much new stuff piled on top of us. We got NWS chat, we got social media, we got other things, meso analysis and things like that we weren't doing quite as much so far. We didn't get any more people to do that. So we're stretched more thin with the amateur radio stuff. But what's worked very well is when we have net control stations scattered across the area who are collecting those reports from their local networks and then sending them into us on NWS chat. That's really been very effective. We will give amateur radio operators access to NWS chat, but only if they're a net control station or someone that's working directly with an emergency manager or some organized spotter network. We can't just give it to everybody that's out there. Unfortunately, it's overloaded enough as it is. But so yeah, we do interact. We do very much appreciate all the reports. I'm an amateur radio operator. I haven't talked on the radio in I don't know how long. The only reason I'm in the Weather Service is because I'm an amateur radio operator. That's how I got my foot in the door. That was the basis. I got my license so I could be a storm spotter, and that really started me on this road. So I have the utmost respect and appreciation, but we still rely on it, but it's different than it used to be.
Tune up and get on the air.
I need to have a radio first here at home, but anyway, I'm embarrassed to say what a non-operator I am. But
I believe SCARS can handle that for you. We'll get you taken care of radio wise.
I've got one somewhere. I've got a handy talkie somewhere. Anyway,
we'll get you some.
Rick,
promises.
Rick, can you hear me? This is Hank Hamner. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How do you interface with the aviation weather out at the airports?
Okay, well, at Will Rogers, for example, there is of course, we have an automated weather station out there. ASOS is the acronym for that. We do have a weather observer, a contract weather observer who's contracted with the FAA to kind of watch over those observations at certain times of the day and augment them if he or she needs to. So that's still there. We used to have live observers 24 hours a day at a lot of these airports, but most of the observations now are automated, but in some situations we do have an actual person there.
So do you issue any of the aviation warnings, or is that done under the airport's authority, or what?
The only aviation things we do is we do routine aviation forecasts. So for Will Rogers, 4 times a day, we'll produce call it a TAF, a terminal aerodrome forecast, and it's kind of gives ceilings, visibilities, cloud heights, or wind speed, wind shear, things like that for aircraft at Will Rogers and several other airports around the area. We do an airport weather warning, which is something that we generate that is specifically and only for Will Rogers. And we have a set of criteria that we use for that. So if we're expecting, I can't remember what the wind threshold is. It's lower than a severe thunderstorm warning, and it could also be sleet or freezing rain. That's mainly for ramp operations. It's not necessarily for air traffic and things like that. The weather alerts and forecasts and information for en route flights and things like that come from the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City, and from there are some weather service units located at some hub airports like Fort Worth and Memphis that do some of those too. So our only warning that we do for airports is that airport weather warning.
Thank you. One final question is, do you coordinate the air balloons, or who determines where they sent and when they're used and things like that?
Very good question. The Weather Service offices, and there's about 90 something of them across the country that are upper air sites that do weather balloons routinely. Those were established way back in the day, and they're spread out to try to give as even coverage as possible across the United States. We need a lot more of them, obviously, but our side, and just like everybody else does, 2 launches a day routinely. We do it at 0Z. They're called the 0Z and 12Z launch. We actually do start the launch an hour before that. So the 0Z launch actually we let the balloon out of our hand sometime right around 5 p.m. and the same thing at 5 a.m. for the 12Z launch. Of course, we'll be changing times tomorrow. But yeah, those are done routinely. We do have the option of doing extra balloons. Typically, those are done at the request in our area of the Storm Prediction Center if it's a severe weather day, and then we get a handle on the cap or moisture depth or something like that. They can ask us for it. Sometimes during hurricane season, the Hurricane Center will ask for supplemental balloons from a wide swath of the southern United States so they can get more updated weather information into their computer models for hurricane track forecasting. We can also decide to do one on our own if we just, and we've done that before, if we just want to do one, just to get for freezing rain forecast or for severe weather, we do those too. So that's a long rambling answer. We routinely do twice a day. We can do extra ones. I know there was a severe weather event in the past 2 years where we did one every 3 hours for a while, just because it was a big day or potentially a big day. we tie that back to aviation. We do coordinate every time we launch a balloon. Well, when we launch the morning balloon, I don't think, well, when Westheimer is in operation, we actually call the tower before we launch the balloon just to give them a heads up that we're launching. They know our schedule, but we just give them a heads up that we're launching. So they are.
Well, thank you very much. Your presentation has been very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions. Anybody else? Anything at all?
I have a couple of things.
Yes.
One, I'm glad you touched on the ham radio side of it, because I've been trying to encourage larger portions of the chase community to utilize amateur radios. You know, as you well know, there are large swaths of area that don't have cellular data, like a good chunk of the current target area for today. So I'm glad we were able to touch on that. The other thing kind of stems on some discussions that we've had over on the Storm Track forum and on the Discord off and on over the last couple of years. And there's been a number of surveys among non-weather people, just, you know, your average civilian, that where they tend to confuse the various risk levels. And this is probably more of an SPC question than for you, but I was just kind of curious on your thoughts. They tend to confuse marginal and slight, and they tend to confuse moderate and enhanced and get them flip-flopped. And I was just kind of curious on your thoughts of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of studying that's being done on that. I mean, it was carefully thought out when the SPC introduced these categories. There was consultation with social scientists and things like that. But clearly, it's not working for everybody. I mean, there are people that I work with in the building, students that have done research and have just recently presented research at a couple of big weather conferences on surveys that they've done that verify exactly what you're saying. People have different ideas of what's worse, enhanced or moderate. Most people don't know that enhanced actually is short for an enhanced slight risk. So it's a slight risk that's enhanced a little bit. Some people put enhanced above moderate. People get confused by the colors. The colors don't make sense to everyone. So I don't think we'll ever have a perfect system, but know that the SPC is listening. They're really looking at these studies, and I don't have any information if they're going to change anything, but they're certainly open to it. They're not set in stone with any of this. I don't know. My personal opinion, just sitting here in my office at home, is I think it's too many. I mean, I think we're okay with 3. I think 5 can be too much. 5 may be good for us folks, you know, the internal people that can get the nuances between them. But, you know, I don't know, maybe 2 is good enough, 2 or 3. But that's my personal opinion. But yeah, I see the confusion. But what we tried to do, and the SPC has tried to do, is use words, use colors, and use numbers. And it seems to me, and I know Channel 5 does this a lot, is they'll say this is a 3 out of 5, or this is a 2 out of 5. And when I do communication with the public sometime or on social media, sometimes I'll use that, and people seem to get that more than they do, you know, a slight or an enhanced or something like that. So it's very much an issue, and everybody's aware of it. And there's the foundations of work going on to see what we need to do about that next.
Yeah, I've been chasing long enough that I remember the old the 3-tiered risk system. So, and myself and some of the older chasers kind of feel like that simplifying it back down to that point would probably be easier from a public standpoint.
Yeah, I think in the future though, we're going to be, I mean, all their outlooks are based on probabilities now, but we're going to be going down that road even further in introducing probabilities in some form or fashion into more of the forecast, the watches, the warnings, things like that. So that's going to probably change the way we do things too. So I don't know, it's a good point. And that's one of the challenges this time of year, is just communicating the risk. And another point that I make, is just my personal opinion, is, do we expect people to do something different? The average citizen walking around Norman or Moore today, do we expect them to do something different if we say it's a slight risk versus an enhanced or moderate risk? Or we still want them to pay attention, be ready? I don't know. I could go on a soapbox, but that's my opinion. Good points.
And change doesn't come quickly within the Weather Service, nor does it come without a lot of research and thought and talking to people. I know I was part of a group, gosh, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, working on the changes to the watch warning advisory system. So,
yeah, it's not a fast process. Thankfully, though, we have learned, I mean, the reason we have slight, moderate, and high to start with is a bunch of, educated white guy meteorologist, geeky meteorologist got in a room and came up with that system because it made sense to them and sounded good to them with no input at all from real people. So then we just inherited that, and that's gone down the line. So slight was probably never a good word for the public, but the outlooks were never intended to be for the public. They were internal products, but they just evolved over time. So if you go back to the roots to see where all this started, that's kind of the problem, is we were geeky guys talking to each other. But now we have a full complement of social scientists from all different disciplines involved, and communications experts and specialists and surveys. And so we're doing it, I think we're doing it right this time, but it is, nothing moves quickly with this. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, requests, complaints?
No, but thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was trying to remember the last time I was at a SCARS meeting, and oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I don't know if it might have been, I don't know when it was, but it's been way too long. So
Not-
You said
not
it was at
this
the Moose
century.
Lodge. You said it was at the Moose Lodge is what we
oh, and I don't know if there was one at Fire Station 7 one time. I don't know if y'all have ever met there.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to.
that's normal.
That's normal for us. I got one more
I may,
question.
I may have done one there, but the Moose Lodge was the first one I can remember, and that's
A while
when I
ago.
first got here, I think.
Rick, I got one question from Mike. It says he really enjoys the outlooks on amateur radio, broadcast on amateur radio. Does the National Weather Service fund any of this? And do you plan to continue the outlooks? I'm guessing he's talking about the 14510 repeater in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that is one of the things that's kind of fallen victim to just, amateur radio, us kind of getting spread thinner in the office and not being able to devote all the attention to that. What it ends up being a lot of times in some parts of our area, the local amateur radio network net controls, or someone will do that outlook. They'll just read the outlook at, we used to do it at 7:30 and 12:30 or something like that. We used to do it from the office on all the different repeaters. We don't do that anymore. On 145.410, I thought somebody had picked that up and was doing it. You may occasionally hear Forrest Mitchell doing it. If he's in the office, he will do it. A lot of times if you hear him on amateur radio, is doing it from home, kind of on his own time. So we don't have a routine set up to do that outlook like we used to. I know it's valuable though for people that are out and about and not able to read it. And, it's kind of a traditional thing that, I'd certainly like to keep going any way we can, but.
Rick, maybe we need to get together on that afterwards and figure out how to work something out with the community. That'd be
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard him twice yesterday. It was very nice.
Yeah, I mean, like the Southwest Link, the SWIRA group down there. I think somebody down there does it. I think on their repeaters at those times, just on their own. I mean, all we're doing is just reading the text product. So we weren't really providing a lot of insight or anything into that. But yeah, I think it's good, and that's what it's come to a lot now. Is just relying on you guys in the local areas to kind of collect and forward to us, or, we still have the amateur radios on. We very much are, we're also using 800 megahertz on the state system, the SEMA 3 and 4 to communicate. And Galen, we did get some new radios the other day, so we're in good shape there now with that. I think there was a problem with one of the connectors for the the base station, but anyway, we talked about that later. But yeah, that is part of the tradition that a lot of people have relied on. So hopefully we can keep it going.
I got another one from John, K5GTW. With all the weather products and data you have from past events, is there still no substantial correlation between ground terrain and the effects on tornado genesis?
There's a lot of research that's been done on that. I know that there's people over in Huntsville, Alabama that are doing research on that because they're very tornado prone, and they have some actual well, they have some mountains or geographic features that they think have some correlation. I don't think they have any widespread correlation. It could be that there could be some local effects. For example, this is not, one of the things I noticed, I worked in the Tulsa office for a while, and they still notice, is you get more easterly winds around Fort Smith because of the channeling of the winds due to some terrain features there. So you certainly get that. We certainly see that. You can actually get some upslope action going on like you see in the Rockies, but on a much smaller scale in the Wichita Mountains or things like that. So I'm not saying it has no effect, but it's not going to stop a tornado. It's not going to deflect a tornado. There may be impacts on the very, very small scale that's really even hard to measure or study. But we've seen tornadoes go up and down the mountains in the Wichitas and the Rocky Mountains. Tornadoes really don't see that terrain, but I can't say it doesn't have a role, but I don't think there's any terrain around the metro area here that would play any role at all. I mean, there's a myth among some out there that tornadoes don't cross the mighty roaring Canadian River down there that you can walk across most of the time, but nothing like that has a big impact. But I'm not saying there's no impact, and there are studies being done to understand it more. Good question. Anybody else before we wrap up? All right. Well, I thank you so much, Mark Galen, everybody
Thanks,
else for
Rick.
having me, for the invitation. And anytime I can come back, if you come up with another topic you want to talk about or something, I'd be glad to do it. It'll be hurricane season, whatever. So just let me know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Well,